Hey, in this episode of This Week in Photo, we're going to be talking about the controversy surrounding Reddit. This is TWiP. Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Photo. I am your host, Frederick Van Johnson. Today on the show, I get a chance to sit down with my really good friend, Mr. Jeff Greenberg, who also happens to be the moderator for one of the more popular forums, subreddits, I guess I'm supposed to call them, over on Reddit, the slash edit or slash, is it slash editors or slash? He'll tell us when I bring him on screen. But this is me flubbing that is a good example of how knowledgeable I am about Reddit. I'm not a Redditor. I'm not a user of Reddit. Not for any reasons, just because I just never got into it. And I feel like I should, but now I feel like I missed the boat because of all the things that we're going to talk about. But Jeff knows Reddit inside and out. He's been using it forever. He moderates a very large community over there. And of course, as a moderator of a very large community, he has been following this most recent controversy with bated breath. So I invited him to come on the show to give us an insider perspective of what's happening with Reddit. Is it just what the heck is going on over there? I want a state of the union of Reddit. Jeff Greenberg, welcome to the podcast, man. How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Frederick. I am outstanding. It's a lie I believe every day. And, you know, we're today not talking about editorial or color correction on the video side, although we are. I joined this community called Reddit about 13, 14 years ago. And what I had happen was I was looking for a place with good forums where I could kind of be a little anonymous, to be honest, because I wanted to be able to ask stupid questions in public. Mm-hmm. And yeah. Reddit, we're old bulletin board people. And for those of you who've, every time you've got to join a forum, technically Facebook groups are terrible forums. They really are. They're
forums with strings, lots of strings attached to them, right? That's what they are. But let's start there. Let's start with some definitions. That was a perfect sort of tee up for a brief history of Reddit. Like back in the day when you and I were out riding our bikes and, having fun and, actually enjoying the outdoors as kids or young adults. This is when the bulletin board sort of era showed up. This is pre-internet, so we're going to date ourselves. So pre-proper internet, and it was dial-up when you had to go buy a modem from CompUSA or wherever, plug it in and dial a number and connect to a bulletin board service where then you could log in and interact with other humans on a variety of topics, right? So now Reddit, I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm a newbie, Reddit is that with gasoline poured on it, and imagine a gazillion people using multiple of these, quote, bulletin boards or subreddits simultaneously with the ability to upvote and downvote different articles that people are posting for popularity's sake. Am I close to the truth here?
You're not bad. I'll give you a little bit more to that.
Okay, good.
Basically speaking, no matter what, we've always congregated to online communities. We do it in person and we do it virtually. And old school bulletin boards, it was a big deal when, that bulletin board group had two modems because two people could actually interact live. But somebody would post a message and somebody would reply to it. And that's the basic concept of threaded conversation that's been asynchronous forever. There was a website called Dig, and Dig's big concept was that basically somebody could dig up something cool on the internet and other people would vote a story up. And the base concept was they would dig in the new things and the best would rise to the top. There are one or two other groups out there, like one that's still near and dear to my heart called Metafilter that still exists out there. And this whole idea of these sort of communities, I was participating in a community, and I'm not going to name the community, but basically I said, I'm going to exit here. I found Reddit. When I found Reddit, I saw what they were trying to do, and they've got a couple really unique features that they haven't really done much improvement over 13 years. Basically, Reddit itself is a platform, and communities are called subreddits. And any community you would like, your favorite band, photography, Canon, Sony, people have created their own sub-communities called subreddits. And if you would like to go visit one, you can go to reddit.com/r. R is the subreddit prefix / whatever the name of the community is. And the one that I have my greatest attachment to is called editors. When somebody comes to Reddit, they have karma. You're at a zero balance karma when you first start. And this is what Reddit's unique factor is. People vote up and down stories. They vote up and down content. Base concept. The good stuff rises to the top. The bad stuff falls to the bottom. And as your posts, as your comments get more upvotes, your karmic value increases. And in theory, you become more valued when you give opinions, or more insulated when not. And it's amazing. We can take literally any given topic, and I'm just going to reddit.com/r photography. And I'll see here a subreddit load. Photography, Frederick, has got 5 million people who've joined the subreddit of photography. At this moment, there are 450 people there. And that's part of Reddit's real wonderful part, is it's semi-anonymous and it's free.
Yeah.
You don't like photography?
Which could be a double-edged sword, right? Anonymous and free, to me, equals troll. I don't know, right? So is there a large troll
bots? It's awful. It's just as bad in that regard as Twitter, with one exception. Votes again. Sit back and change the content. Upvote, downvote content. Because of this karmic system. And the karmic system is brilliant, Frederick, because the biggest first thought is trolls and spammers. Well, guess what? Most subreddits have a police bot called Moderator. And I can say anybody who's in their first 30 days of Reddit, they can't post, they can't comment without me as a moderator, a volunteer moderator, saying approve or disapprove that item. And I use that word volunteer moderator because we're kind of meshing these communities here. Facebook has got buckets of moderators that Facebook, I think they spend $500 million. And you hear the tragedy of some of these people talk about the amount of awful things that they've seen on Facebook. Reddit, Frederick, if you wanted to, I could make you a moderator of our editors. All I'd have to do is send you the invite. You'd go, yeah.
Karmic system, I want to talk about that. So that I get that. So the karmic system, which is, so just to put it in my terms, if I write an article, say I write a post on photography and AI or something, right? And I put it in there and it's great and a bunch of people thumbs up it or upvote it, then ostensibly that article has more weight and will be seen by more people, right? And on the backside, I get karma. So the next time I post, it will have a little bit more weight, and so karma is almost like trust. Like, okay, we don't know these people, so I don't trust you at all when you first join. Then you prove yourself. Now you have trust, and when you post something, it'll be seen by more people. My question is, with slash photography that you were looking at, with the millions of people in there, and who, I guess the question is, who owns the millions of people? Who is it? The moderator? Is it Reddit? Is it who's the owner? Is the person that set up that set up that subreddit? Who is the owner of those 2 million or whatever millions of people?
Wow, that's a really difficult. No, it's not a difficult question. Reddit owns everything. You're on Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg owns everything. You're using Twitter at this point. Elon Musk or the board of Twitter owns everything. That's the legal answer. The actual answer is a lot more complex. First off, the person who runs photography right now, or I'm looking at their mod list, their moderator list, they're modded by about 12, 15 people. In theory, the first person to come and say, I'd like to start a photography subreddit or editors subreddit for video editing, they're the owner. And everybody below them as a moderator gets invited. And there is nothing you can do to remove that top person, more or less. And in fact, the moderators, I can ban somebody from my community. And Frederick, if you didn't like that, you could start your own photo community. And that's kind of the way Reddit and blogging has always been. If you don't like my blog, start your own blog. If you don't like my subreddit or this community, join a different one. What we have here is this very interesting problem, like Wikipedia. Mm-hmm. Who owns all the text from Wikipedia? Well, Wikipedia goes, oh, it's Creative Commons, type 0. They've got a bunch of items that make it essentially a free share. Reddit is trying to do their IPO, and this becomes sort of their intrinsic knowledge value. That's really important.
And this is where it gets complicated, right? So go for it. This is the meat of the conversation that we're gonna nibble on for the next couple minutes. So yeah, go for it.
So Reddit itself, it's a platform, man. It's just a platform. That's not value. It's the content that people have added to that. How good is that content? Man, if you haven't done it, and you're looking for the next great camera, the next great car accessory, if you add just the word Reddit to your Google search, not even site:/reddit.com, just the word Reddit, it leads you into these forums of passionate people who are giving their expertise about a given topic. And there's a lot of garbage. Let's have no illusions. There's the same echo chamber. There's a lot of evil that exists, that has existed, but that's true for Facebook. That's true. There are hate groups on Facebook that have private communities and will not know about them. There is awful all over Twitter, and a lot of people still are using Twitter. At least as far as tech or information specialty, Reddit seems to be at this moment the king, because you can search through the archived information shared by people. And to give you an idea, Frederick, I'm a casual photographer. If I sit back and I said to you, I can name you 5 big items from last year, last calendar year in photography, here they are. DP review is to close. DP review is being archived by the archive team, whatever that means. New York restaurants ban flash photography and influencers are furious. Shooting a wedding for friends, never again. And a celebrated nature photographer donates life's work to public domain. Those are the top 5. I want to do 6. Divorced woman demands refund from wedding photographer 4 years later.
See, that's interesting. I wouldn't have picked those stories because that's what Reddit thinks the most popular stories over the past year were by upvotes, right? And by karma.
Correct.
But yeah, where is the, all these crazy camera releases? Where's all the controversy about artificial intelligence eating photographers' lunches? Where's, there's a ton.
I only did the first 5 or 6. If I just do a quick scan, by the way, number 10 is effective immediately. Getty Images will cease to accept submissions creating AI generative models, which has got 260 comments about it.
Okay. Yeah, there we go.
How about number 12? How John Glenn's $40 camera forced NASA to rethink space missions. How about next one? Adobe Lightroom uses your photos for AI training by default. Okay. Now, as far as gear, because gear is always exciting, you on the right side on the photography subreddit, they've got by the way, posts themselves can have flair. So you could sit back and you could say something is for around AI, something's around business, something's around gear. I can further take those 5 million posts. I'm sorry, those 5 million users and what the posts have been just for the last year. But I could just as easily, if I was looking for gear, if I'm looking for Sony gear, do I really want to be in a generic photography subreddit? Don't I want to be in a Sony photography subreddit so I can hear what Sony photographers feel? That's how granulated it gets. And it gets crazy granulated. And again, I want to point out there's quite a bit around politics. There's quite a bit around religion. There's quite a lot about gender and sexual identity across us, to talk nothing of the subreddits of adult not safe for work. And that could be anything from nudity to gross out to violence. Some of the most amazing stuff is in this platform. Do we judge a platform, Frederick, by its worst content, its best content? I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's a platform, right? It's like an apartment building filled with people, right? It's still a structure with plumbing and electricity and all that, but there may be salacious things happening in one room and great things happening in another room, and we can't really blame it on the platform or the place. Kind of. Maybe you can, kind of.
With the one exception, if I created a photography site called Adult Photography, pretty much, we know what we're getting. When in the past 2 to 3 years, we've seen people, for better or worse, frustrated with a particular focus around a given platform. And they say, oh, we're going to have our freedom-based platform over here. And you pretty much know what you're getting into. This is wide and generic. This is the base of the pyramid. It's as wide as it gets. There are sub-communities, subreddits of 50 people. There are groups of 50 million people. I think Reddit's like the number 6th or 7th traffic website every day.
Thank you for saying that, because that was my last segue into what this controversy is. Do you have a number? Like, what is the number, the traffic, or how do they measure Reddit? Is it by traffic? Is it by registered users? Is it by number of posts per day? Like, what's the metric there?
I'm going to assume it's sheer traffic. I'm going to assume that whatever the groups that register, the most important website at the moment, they're sitting back and looking at outbound and inbound links that they can track. Because while there may be analytics here in Reddit keeps most of their analytics to themselves. Nobody is actively publishing incoming and outbound links. I can look at a small sliver of the subreddits I moderate. There are several. That becomes, is just an interesting little piece of the story, Frederick. I came to Reddit looking for this. I saw this great group, well, 2 groups, one called Editors, the other called Video Editing. And the problem I had was I would see a lot of people going, I want the best editing tool. And those are casual users. It's not that they don't want a great tool, but they're not the same as, I've been working in this field for 5 or 10 years. I'm using one of 3 tools that's mandated by my boss. I want to talk about the work I have to get done, a professional side and a hobby side. I volunteered to start moderating, to drive a wedge, to separate the people who are casual users so the casual users could get focused conversation on their needs and the professionals could get focused conversation on what their needs are. So our editors has about 106,000 people right now. Video editing is 350,000. Video editing is gaming, casual, somebody dabbling with it. They want DaVinci Resolve, generally speaking. The professional version is people who are making their living. I've amended how I say making their living with the tool. Are you paying taxes and listing this as part of your profession?
Yes,
That's my new standard for it versus the
I think
Fiverr
that's the
guy.
IRS's standard as well, right? So you can't
Right.
claim it as your primary source of income unless it actually is. And therefore, that's how we define professional versus amateur photographers in the business, right? If you're saying you're a professional photographer, you could say that all day long and produce professional work. But if you're doing it in the evening and you're a dentist or a tech worker in the daytime, and that's your profession, this is just a hobby. You can't say professional photographer unless on your tax return you're saying I'm a professional photographer and that's what I do. Now you're a true professional in the eyes of the government, at least, if that matters to you. So
It does matter, and that's sort of my dividing line. And because Reddit has such intrinsic value, because there's such knowledge has been shared, and they're about to go IPO, there's this funny little change of things that happened about 7 months ago, 8 months ago, which were large language models. And if you're going to train your machine learning, artificial intelligence, Reddit and Reddit's corpus of information is a phenomenal place to train really great information. So this is why suddenly Reddit wants to lean into their IPO and take control of their site because of artificial intelligence based around language.
Okay, so let's get into that. So we set the stage on what this thing called Reddit is, right? So we know it's basically a almost limitless, niched down group of forums that have this karma thing related to them for upvoting and downvoting, and also that bit to raise the popularity of certain articles and verify them, all that. So I get that. So let's switch gears. So in my research for this discussion and this controversy that's impacting Reddit right now, you hit it right on the head. So it's this IPO thing that they're trying to do, which is initial public offering, meaning the company wants to go from being a privately owned company to being a public company with stocks that people can buy into, and thus increasing the value of the company, allowing to do more things. Double-edged sword, of course, because now you're not just making decisions at night while watching TV and implementing them in the morning. You have oversight and all that other stuff that goes along with being a public company. So they need to figure out how to monetize Reddit and make it look attractive to shareholders and people that are buying into the IPO. Hence this controversy where and I want you to, I'm gonna put a bone out there. I want you to put all the meat on the bone. Right? So this controversy, as I see it, is okay. Reddit wants to go public, and since Reddit began, and this is the story that I feel like I have in my brain. Since Reddit started, they were remiss in creating an API or in creating mobile apps or external apps to ease the use of Reddit, either on mobile devices, etc. So third parties came in and used Reddit's API, application programming interface, which is basically a pipe into the system that lets them send something in and get something out, and it basically operate software outside of the Reddit database and work with it. Most things use that, right? Use APIs, or a lot of things use APIs to communicate with main systems. So they had that, but they didn't create a mobile version, at least initially. So third parties swung in and created it. And when you create an API, there's this thing it's called an or a call, right? So whenever I want to do something or interact with, in this case, Reddit, I'm making a call, not a phone call, but my system is making a call into the system and getting a result back, right? So my understanding is Reddit wants to start charging per 1,000 calls for third-party developers to the tune of 45 cents a call, which could be a lot, right? So take it from there. All right, what is the?
Sure,
did I get it right?
I'm going to reframe it. You did again. You did great research. I'll just reframe it a little bit. You have this platform. You don't have a lot of resources because you're trying to act as lean as you can as a company. So you could develop your own tools, or you don't have the resources for today. So what you do, and you have so many people asking, hey, I'd like my community to connect into these communities. You create an API to allow communication to happen at some level, whether it's for advertising, whether it's for ad injection, because what you don't want is screen scraping. You don't want some third party to load all the data every single time they want something. So what you do is you go, oh, we don't have enough money to create a mobile app. We're going to create an API. We're going to open it up. There's all sorts of opportunities, rainbows everywhere, gold everywhere. And that's what they do, 13 some years ago. And one group, one particular iOS developer at the beginning of the iPhone, hey, you don't have to go through Reddit's desktop website, which isn't so easy to read. You don't have to go through whatever mobile garbage they're doing. You download this app and you have a much better experience. And you go, whoa, that's fantastic. And again, right now, everything is free. Everything is free. Reddit starts to add some advertising. A lot of these groups are able to see the advertising come in through the API, and they're making a little bit of money by saying, no, you're not seeing it. Now, I don't care about that, to be honest. It's great, if you build your tool around somebody else's platform and you're getting it all for free, one day they may wake up and go, we want to charge through that. And that is totally within Reddit's rights. Reddit, remember, we'll get back to those volunteer moderation. That's where we run into a problem. I would argue, Frederick, that pretty much we're in a post-PC society for the last, let's say, 8 years. And what I mean by that is our primary interface to computers and the internet are our phones, mobile work. Reddit has neglected their mobile tools for two groups that are important around their platform. The one is my personal side, which is moderation. It's the middle of the night, I'm out with family, I just want to take a quick look into Reddit and quickly moderate. And their tools for mobile moderation are terrible. They're just not, it's literally, the Steve Jobs line, everybody's got to, we've got to eat our own dog food. You have to use your own tools. It's like nobody at Reddit really moderates using their own tools on mobile. But more importantly, Reddit has got this infrastructure now of all of these bots that help make the system run well. And particularly, some of these bots, some of these third-party clients allow people with accessibility needs who have vision impairment to moderate their communities. And therein lies the problem. It is totally within Reddit's rights to say, here's our API, we're going to charge a lot of money for it, pushing everybody else out of the platform, because when the machine language people come in and they want to access us through the API, we're going to charge them a lot of money for the amount of hits they're going to do through our API. That is totally within their right. Reddit wants to own that because they don't want a third party to insert themselves there. They want to collect that bounty of gold.
In that case of visually impaired people, though, you would think they would make, special sort of decisions. They can do it case by case, or just for those sorts of mission critical uses, right? It's not another photographer with an app that wants to, build a connection into Reddit, right? Why not make it so that it's easier for those people to continue without interruption? Because presumably they're operating, I don't know these businesses, but presume if it's a business that's operating altruistically to begin with, why not just let them keep doing what they're doing, especially if they're not a heavy load on the system? What's the logic behind making a blanket decision for everyone with no nuances in there?
Phenomenal question. Phenomenal. Watch this. Does Microsoft Word have accessibility features? Or is Microsoft Word a word processor that people who are sighted and blind use? And I would argue it's just Microsoft Word. It's a word processor and it's used by everybody. The struggle here is Reddit has neglected their mobile tools. Why shouldn't they? Third parties have come in and done it all for free. Whether or not they make a profit is irrelevant. These third-party tools have come in and they've built good mobile moderation. Just to give you a quick idea, every time I load it up on my phone, I've got to do the equivalent of like 3 mouse clicks to get to the moderator side. And then every time I have to retell it to sort it by new. Don't sort it by popular. I don't care what's popular as a moderator. So I have to do the same, like, let's call it 8 presses rather than 1 press.
Yeah. And to their credit, maybe that's what this IPO is about, to get that influx of cash to allow them to work on the user interface and make it a better product. So I get that. The part that I need help understanding is the timing of this. So I'm hoping you can walk me through that. Because if you rewind back, you remember this little company called Apple, right? So a while ago, they acquired a company. I think it was a weather app called Dark Skies. You remember that? Dark Sky.
It's my favorite, one of my favorite apps.
Right. It was beautiful, which is now gone and is now incorporated into the Borg Apple collective, right? So I look at how that went down, and they bought the app, and there were a bunch of API users of Dark Sky that were plugging into the app, right, and using the data. Hang on. So they were using the data, plugging in. Apple said, "Oh, we bought this, or we're buying this, and we're going to terminate API usage, but we're going to give you a year or 6 months or whatever,
18
right?
months.
18 months." And then the 18 months rolled around and they said, "Oh, you guys you don't have your crap together yet. Here's another year. Get it done." And then we're shutting it off. And then they shut it off, right? That seems, granted, Apple is a multi-trillion-dollar company, so they have a certain amount of leeway that they can play with. They can be benevolent if they want to. But to contrast that with what Reddit is doing, if I understand this correctly, Reddit gave its developers or the developer community a month to pack up your crap and get out, right? It's like, even if it was 2 months, I mean, is that enough time?
Here's the hypocrisy. Here's the hypocrisy. Here's the absolute gall. Hey, it's been 10 years. We haven't really built good mobile moderation or mobile accessibility. After a decade plus on mobile, by the way, that we had to buy somebody else out because we couldn't engineer it. And now there's a whole bunch of people who've built their platforms around our API and our ecosystem. We haven't managed to do that at 10 some years or 5 years or 1 year, but we're going to give you 90 days to make your tools compliant or friendlier or whatever. And if not, the penalty is we're going to charge you 45 cents per user or whatever the pricing is. We're going to do this so rapidly that we make it impossible for you as a developer to survive.
Yeah.
Because we want you off the platform.
Yeah, and it gets deeper. I was watching, as I was researching for this chat with you, I was watching this podcast by MKBHD. I think it was their Waveform podcast. But they were talking about the same issue, and they brought up it gets stickier than that. So it gets stickier from the perspective of, if you've built this app and Reddit has not been charging you. Granted, they should have been, but they have not. So you built this thing up over the years. You have users and you're charging subscription fees to your app, which you are then charging through the Apple App Store. And as we know, in some cases, you do a monthly subscription and sometimes you do an annual subscription for, people that don't want to be bothered and nickel and dimed every month. You pay the annual, you get a little bit of change cut off the bill, and everybody's happy. Problem with this is the Reddit gave these developers a month to figure, or let's call it 2 months, or a short amount of time. Yeah, 2 months, a short amount of time to figure this out. So just to put the numbers in perspective, some of these apps when you do the math of these 45 cents per application interface call, API call, some of these apps are looking at 20 million or these outrageous numbers monthly that they would now have to come up with in order to pay for the application access to continue. But on the other side, they can't increase their prices and they can't shut down. If they shut down, they're still liable to pay those people that paid for the year. They got to pay all those people back because those people can just go into the app and request a refund in the app. So they're screwed, right? So unless I'm missing something, so, maybe there's a gotcha I'm not getting.
No, you've got a really sharp call on it. I got a couple numbers off, but you got the basic principle, which is a bunch of these companies out there were charging for their programming knowledge and going through Reddit, bypassing Reddit's advertising in a lot of cases, paying for a monthly, yearly, or in my case, I bought like the Ultra. The day the software came out, I said, this is the best. It's a replacement. It's $20. I'm done. And I've gotten the best $20 use. But if I was a yearly subscriber who just started subscribing in, say, February, I'm angry. This tool is, I don't know this guy from anybody. I want my money back. The numbers that Reddit has set up, and by the way, during a group call with these developers, they said, we're not going to do this the way Twitter did. We're going to make sure the numbers work out. That was part of public record. And then about 30 days later, they come out with their pricing. The number is $2 million a month for a very beloved Mac OS tool. Again, iOS tool called Apollo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Kristen
Apollo.
Selig is the guy's name. And he did the math just quickly based on and he's like, that's $2 million a month. It's going to be like $20 million a year. And my subscription model, again, that he built on somebody else's API, can't scale for it. And the moment they ask for their refunds, it's going to be a huge bill for me. We could argue that he should have had that money saved up. We could argue that there should be agreements. I don't know. What I do know is that Reddit's intention, at least from as a user perspective, is we want to monetize our API so high bandwidth calls made by large language models for training information we can profit from. Yeah. Because if we can't profit from it, the AI gold rush will go through us and our data is, no longer needed that way.
Yeah, or they smelled the blood in the water. This whole Chat GPT and AI generative text models, all this, and all the gazillion-dollar startups that are sprouting up everywhere based on this. And Reddit, I'm sure, sat back and looked and like, hey, we got a mountain of data. This is perfect for training this AI with. They probably never thought about that, obviously, back in the day when they were letting people just plug into the API because they just wanted to grow the platform, of course. But now there's another goal, especially with this AI stuff coinciding. I don't know which came first, chicken or the egg, but with this AI stuff coinciding with them wanting to go public, it makes perfect sense for them to do that. But at the expense of the developers, like look at this shot. Okay, so this one, let me put
That's
this
the
on.
app. Can I use? By the way, can I use a little? I'm asking permission.
Yes.
Can I use a little piece of foul language?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Okay, so get the kids out of the room, sort of thing. The term that I've only become familiar with this week is called the enshittification. The enshittification of a platform is basically you create a platform, Reddit, TikTok, Twitter, you have it be free, everybody comes on board, everybody starts using it, it becomes actually something of trust. And then you start to destroy that trust, that value between selling out directly, between selling out to foreign nationals, between allowing bots, between advertising to profit, to make lion's share profit. The enshittification of Amazon. Amazon was a bookseller. It destroyed all of our local booksellers. And much like Walmart, it's destroying all of our local small businesses. The enshittification.
Yeah.
And that's basically what we're seeing at some level. And the value is Reddit has this wildly huge platform of trusted information, which made it so valuable that people were adding Reddit to their Google searches. And then we've got the AI machine learning models, which suddenly at one moment go from to holy crap, ChatGPT is a thing. And we've got a group that would love every day of the week to go public, to have an IPO so we can all roll in cash. And if not now around language models, when? And I think it's those three things in that order.
The 1, 2, 3 punch. Yeah. So here's this is sad, right? So like you said, Apollo for Reddit was one of the most popular third-party apps that was using that API in order to pull their data
Frederick,
and serve the customers.
Here's how popular Apollo is. Apollo has been featured not once, not twice, but at least 3 separate times as part of Apple keynotes, including that icon was in the Vision Pro announcement.
Yeah.
That's how in other words, the halls of Apple itself is aware of this tool.
So for those that are listening to the podcast, up on the screen here, if you go to apolloapp.io, you'll see this. But this is what I'm guessing the developer posted, because they shut the app down at the end of last month. As we record this, we're recording this on June 11th of 2023. They shut it down, we're July 11th on 2023. They shut this app down June 30th of 2023. So here's what they said. They said at the top of the screen, it says Apollo for Reddit, January 2015 through June 2023. Apollo shut down on June 30th, 2023, due to Reddit making drastic and sudden increases to API pricing for developers. I loved building Apollo for the last 9 years, and it has been the journey and dream of a lifetime. I'm sad that journey has ended, but I thank you so much for the support over the years, and I feel truly fortunate so many people were able to enjoy Apollo. Signed, Christian. So is that indicative of the rest of the developers? In other words, are all the developers just sort of running for the hills and shutting down shop and saying, hey, I can't deal? All of them? Or are there a couple of holdouts?
Now, by the way, Christian, who was an intern at Apple 9-10 years ago, left that. This was his first real project, hit his gold rush. And it has been the mobile Reddit experience that everything else gets tested across. The closest there have been some on Android. There are about 4 or 5 apps out there. Some of them are more about meme browsing, more about picture or video browsing. But all of that is an aside. They all were working on Reddit's API, and all of them have exited the market. And the second real issue here, Frederick, isn't, although I could argue you do an API this fast, you screw a whole bunch of people out of the market. That, I guess, is your business choice. Reddit, in just spectacular fashion, has done a PR nightmare about the way they've handled it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the secondary problem here is they're the biggest, I could care less as you as a business group, Reddit, screws out a bunch of developers. That's within your business, right? But in doing so, they got a group that's at risk or that's dependent on these tools who are blind. And this is where, Reddit is gone, they've done just a little bit of backtracking going, well, if you're a nonprofit, your tools can continue to work. If you're, a nonprofit, there's not a lot of nonprofits who go, let's build a platform for Facebook or Reddit. No, we may serve an accessibility community, but we're a for-profit. We want to stay in business along those lines, not that nonprofits operate at zero income. But literally speaking, there has been no really great answer about how Reddit should handle this exposed group. And they could say, you know what? It's going to take 6 months long with the API until our mobile tools have equal accessibility. Yeah. That's not been the conversation. It's like one day. And in the way they've played a certain level of lip service, if you go back and you look at Reddit's PR and interaction with the public, it's been tumultuous is nice, a nice way to say it.
I've heard.
It is like the worst shit show of any corporation. It's probably not. I'm probably, too much in a bubble of how probably Exxon, deciding to kill a whole bunch of people, or the whole concept Banana Republic and Chiquita Bananas, upending governments is far more tragic. But if you look at some of the problematic stuff on Reddit and the way Reddit's handled it poorly, from hate groups, from underage pornography. By the way, Reddit, in their prior CEO, they forced this woman, Ellen Pao, who made a stellar lawsuit, which I'm sure settled out of court. But like one of the hate groups was called Fat People Hate. And it was literally the worst of the worst you can imagine there. The concept of involuntary celibates, incels, or red pill comes out of Reddit. Now, not only does this woman, Ellen Pao, get forced out, conflict with the current CEO, Steve Huffman. Steve Huffman was added as a moderator to a subreddit. Here we go, Frederick, called Jailbait. And it's exactly what you think it was. The contrary argument is, well, that was back in the day where you could just add any user as a moderator to your subreddit, which is fine, with the caveat the next job should have been to unmoderate, to say no. And that didn't happen fast enough or well enough or smart enough. By the way, you're browsing, you're scrolling by Reddit as I talk here. I'd like you to know you're looking at reddit.com. Would you do me a favor? Would you just go to the URL and put the word old in front of Reddit for me? So instead of it being www, instead of it www.reddit.com, could you put old?
Oh, interesting.
And the reason I want you to put that is you'll see the interface in a much more basic state.
This is what I remember.
So Reddit built this, and by the way, this is much more readable and it's much faster and much easier. If you were to add, by the way, to old.reddit.com/r for a community.
Okay, /r/
let's do editors, because that's the one I'm the moderator of.
All right.
You now have just editors here. And this is literally, I can browse this quickly. This is the preferred way that a lot of people on desktop look at Reddit. Reddit has this problem that this wasn't friendly enough for mobile, so they switched everybody over to what's now known as just new Reddit, or www. If you just change old to www, you'll see the same exact information under their new interface, which works better on mobile. Again, their idea was, why should we bother building a mobile app when you can browse mobilely? Do we really need a mobile app?
Yeah. Wow.
And this, the ads are much more full in your face. Steve Huffman, the CEO, did a AMA and Ask Me Anything about this topic. I think it had like 2,000 or 3,000 people inside of an hour asking questions. He answered like 10 of them, none of them. And the hatred for this guy is pretty high from this wide set of communities. And so we've got this great vault of information. We have the AI model coming along that is deciding to push people out of the market. And then the handling, instead of it being, hey, we may have made a mistake, we should slow it down, we should make some choices, we're going to barrel forward, we're going to ignore. it'll blow over.
Yeah.
Is, word of the day.
Yeah. Ugh, what a mess. So then the other thing that I wanted to get to was the response from folks like you, the community leaders or the moderators, right? I saw this thing come through about what were they doing? Like what were they? Like who was a late night talk show comedian? I forgot now since the writer's strike. I'm forgetting their name.
John Oliver.
John Oliver. Yeah. So the John Oliver protest where I don't know what went down, but everybody was just posting John Oliver stuff. Explain the protest, please.
Yeah. So here we are, where it's about the 15th of June. All this is happening, and a bunch of moderators are upset about this. They're about to lose their tools. These volunteer people who some of the readers, a lot of the readers feel, they have too much power. They're lording over their little fiefdoms, because every subreddit, in respect, is a fiefdom with its own set of rules. They decide we're going to shut down. Now, here's the problem. You can't ask a community to shut itself down indefinitely. So what some of these coordinators suggested was, let's shut down for just 2 days. And a whole bunch of Reddit blacked out. Kind of an interesting footnote here, before we get down the John Oliver side. This happened to be right during the NBA playoffs, the NBA final. And a whole bunch of people went to Reddit, their beloved source for information about the NBA finals, to find out it was closed. It was closed. They were inconvenienced for 48 hours, and they are angry that this free resource of information, these moderators are evil. They shouldn't have closed. They didn't ask my opinion, even if they did. And now we've got this interesting conflict that's happened. We've got Reddit just trying to squeeze out everybody from their API in a fight with their moderators, both for personal reasons, I'm losing my tools, and high aspirational reasons. We're going to lose out on the impaired, the blind users, because they can't moderate their own communities, with a lot of vocal, angry people going, why did you shut off for 48 hours or longer? And Pix, which is a huge subreddit, I don't know the number, but I gotta know since we're sitting here. And Pix, by the way, is fun pictures on the internet. They have, by the way, 30 million
Wow.
subscribers.
That's a lot of data to feed the AI. So is that all Reddit's data? So all those pictures Reddit could feed or sell to Midjourney?
Not only is that Reddit's information, how much of that violates copyright at some level, whether it's a remix or not, I guarantee you it's huge. So what they did was they changed. First, they made, so we have this 48-hour blackout. And the Reddit admins, the Reddit infrastructure is going, wow, we're losing business. We're losing advertising. Well, it'll just blow over. Literally, the CEO said that to a couple outlets in a private memo. Some of the subreddits didn't come back. They stayed dark. And Reddit turned to a whole bunch of these private now subreddits, the ones that were responsible for some of their income. They didn't go, somebody else should just start a new one. They said, you've got to reopen. You're breaking our terms of service as a moderator. You've gone private inappropriately. And so Pix was forced to reopen. And they said all photos must have something with John Oliver, pictures of a comedian. That's what the C is for comedian. And John Oliver must be included. And that's how they're kind of trying to give a middle finger, a 30 million subscriber middle finger to this group called Reddit's infrastructure to keep, to say we're protesting. And this becomes an interesting, this is a democratic distributed protest. And, if you've been spending the last 5 years of your life moderating pictures with 30 million people, nights, weekends, whatever, who owns that? Is that you? Is that Reddit?
That's the thing.
Their terms?
That's what I'm saying. That's from what I'm learning, what I've researched. That's all well and good that you spent all that time over the past umpteen whatever years and moderating this community and refining it and building it for Reddit. But basically you were digital sharecropping, right? So you were building your farm on someone else's land, and that landowner just said, you know what? I'm doing something different now, and I don't like your farm here. So they could say, okay, so you want to stop producing, you want to shut your farm down in protest. They could just evict you and put another farmer in there to keep farming according to their guidelines. Could they not? Could Reddit not just say, okay, all of you protesters of these, groups of a certain level, you're out of here, and we're going to install our own government regime in here instead of you that is more pliable to our goals of feeding AIs? Could they not do that?
1,000% they could. And it gets even thornier because first, at one level, if we took the top 20 or 30 subreddits they want to do this with, that they'd want to, you're not allowed to switch to not safe for work, because that's what a lot we're doing. Why? Because not safe for work, you can't run advertising on. You're not allowed to go private unless you've got reason to be private, like a community of people who their anonymity or their needs to be kept secret. But you can't break the rules that your community was created on. And if you don't like it, we can fire all your volunteers. We can just fire them all and let it be up for grabs. We could fire the top one and say, we fired the top guy, number 2. Do you want to do it the right way, or do we fire you too? In other words, we can beat you and we can beat the next guy and beat the next guy until somebody down the line goes, yes, I don't want to be thrown away. I don't want to lose the virtualized power, whatever you want to call volunteering for a free community of 30 million people. I don't want to lose that power, that investment, whatever. And Reddit can't afford, by the way, to wipe out all of these groups and put in their own people, because moderation makes them no money beyond keeping, the crops in order.
Yeah.
Keeping the rows real nice and
straight. Who owns that though? Like in slash editors, right? Can what can you do in there? Like there's a ton of people in there. It's a targeted audience of people that are interested in video editing, which presumably would be a very juicy audience to market to for all of the nonlinear video editors and the tools, even Canva and services like that. Do they come to you and ask you if you can somehow promote them within your community? Is that within the Reddit terms of service? In other words, if the guy that has a group with multiple millions of people in there wants to monetize his efforts by selling a course on whatever that thing is that group is about, could he or she do that? Or is that against the terms of service?
It is against the terms of service for you to take advertising dollars because Reddit wants to sell their own advertising. And we get, again, into a very thorny set of areas.
And you get none of that as a community leader. You don't get a piece of that advertising pie as a thank you or a Scooby snack. None of that, right?
Nothing. Not only do you get nothing, because, hey, Frederick, because there's a level of anonymity here. Let's say I have 5 moderators, including myself, and Reddit's going to give a certain piece to each of those 5 moderators. I could just add 5 more moderators that are me under fake names. So instead of me getting 1/5 of the pie, I get, 4/5 of that pie.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, interestingly, number 1, Reddit openly, same guy, Steve Huffman, about a year or 2 years ago, said, we need to find a way through merchandising or other ways for our subreddits and our moderation teams to make money. He openly acknowledged that between tools like Patreon and other platforms out there, that Reddit was trying to take the investment that people had attraction for these communities and make them have paid positions that weren't paid by Reddit. Because we get into a different situation if Reddit is sharing the pie. Are they paying me as a subcontractor? Are they just sharing with me? How are we validating this? That's an infrastructure they don't want to build. And I'm going to add to this, Frederick. I'm going to add a very piece of salacious content. The adult side of Reddit is huge, crazy business. And when I say it's huge, crazy business, there's a platform called OnlyFans. And the amount of OnlyFans, which is generally adult people, a Patreon for adult people selling photos and videos of themselves and relationships.
Yeah.
It's all over Reddit. And Reddit's not collecting any of that money at all. So they've got this very weird sort of space here where moderators aren't allowed to make money. Reddit's allowed to make money. Well, this adult stuff that draws in a lot of traffic, it can make money off of our platform, but it's not doing it through our API. So we're kind of winking a camera okay with it. Man, it's a mess.
Yeah. What a mess, dude. That's crazy. So what do you think? Like when the crux of all this is the API and the fact that Reddit wants to go public, right? All of this controversy, which seems just to be overflowing, the top of the bucket, doesn't that negatively affect the API or the IPO? Doesn't it? I mean, I would think that you'd want clean and no ruffles in the water, no ripples, just like, we're launching this thing. Yeah, go ahead.
I could give you an argument that in a back room, you could go, look, we know this is a mess. This is great. That means more people are going to want to buy the IPO because they know once this mess is over, their stake, their amount of money they're going to make is going to go way up. It's not like this information is going to become crappy overnight. You'll be able to buy in, hold it for a year, drop it after a year, and you'll make even more money because we're going to dip a little bit before we start. This is a great thing. I mean, a good shuckster here can make a big difference. In the way it sounds. And oh, by the way, we secretly, once we go IPO, we've got this first stage plan that we're not telling anybody about yet that does X, Y, or Z, which will increase it even more. The enshittification.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Wow. So then what do you think the IPO will do, right? Like how much do you think Reddit is capable of generating on an IPO? Like billions? I don't know. What did Twitter IPO at when they did it? I'm looking
That's
at
a better question. While you're looking at it, the struggle, I think the ease of Twitter is that, there's a very interesting...
24 billion, by the way, 24 billion. Twitter, their IPO price was set at $26, but it opened at $45.10 on the first trading day. Then it jumped up to $50, closed the day at $44.90, giving Twitter a market value of $24 billion when it went IPO.
The funny thing is, whether it's Twitter, there's a number now of Twitter competitors. And I consider Instagram a Twitter competitor along these lines. Yeah. A lot of them have fallen by the wayside. We now have Threads in the market suddenly out of nowhere. I think the value of a social platform in and of itself, an easier one, hey, it's easy to join Instagram. Reddit is easy to join, not as easy to parse for a novice user. Are they going to have a lot of growth? Am I going to make money? I don't know what Reddit will end up being worth. I don't know that they can do an IPO with so much stink around it right now. They probably can. If I've got a whole bunch of money in a fund and I go, oh, sure, might as well invest in this. It's got an IPO. It's only going to go up. I look at it that if I was really smart about this stuff, Frederick, I would be investing. I would have had a whole bunch of money in Apple and Twitter years ago, and I didn't.
Yeah. I mean, hindsight, right? Hindsight's 2020.
Hindsight's 20 to 5. If I could go back with the right $100 back to 1990, billion wouldn't be enough of a word for what I could do. right?
Yeah. All right, Marty McFly. Good luck.
Right? Just a little bit of Apple, a little bit of Amazon, a little bit of Twitter in the right spots. You would have done great.
Yeah, yeah, that's the trick,
This,
right? That's the trick. Being able to read those tea leaves of what happened in the past. You don't need a time machine, but I think if as I think you and I talked about this a while ago, but as you get older, you start seeing patterns in chaos. And you can predict a result based on what you've already lived through a couple of times. So that's why you can then go in and say, oh, I've seen this play out before, and there are two ways that this could go. I'm going to bet on A, and move in that direction. Yeah.
Perhaps. Kind of is a real interesting little divot there. There's a subreddit called Wall Street Bets. And what does Wall Street Bets do? These people try to sit back, 14 million of them, who are subscribed, who aren't even, there's always more people who read a subreddit than actually are subscribed to it. But 14 million people are trying to find the next great thing along those lines. And when I say the next great thing, the next great undervalued stock that they can invest their life savings. And you see some really interesting flips where some people go, oh my God, I made phenomenal amount of money, or I just destroyed my entire life savings because I don't really know what I'm doing. And it's really fascinating to watch these sort of prognostications because, this content eats itself. This group, this Reddit, there's discussions against what Reddit is doing, for what Reddit is doing. I'm just a guy on the wall, man.
Yeah, aren't we all? But this is playing out real time, right? The story has not the conclusion to the story has not been written yet. We're just reporting on, I feel like we're reporting on chapter 8 of maybe a 12 chapter book. What do you think is going to where do you think is going to be the conclusion or the climax of this story? Like what's going to happen?
I think the really tough item that we all have to kind of admit is that we like our dopamine fix. That's why scroll to the end that's why it's never ending scroll is deadly. Whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on where I think one of the first places it started on Reddit itself. And it's deadly because you can go a couple days without your dopamine fix. But after a couple days, Frederick, when was the last time you went out of your house without your phone?
Ooh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, probably never.
Right.
Phone or watch, that's also a phone. Right.
Horrendous anxiety if I'm too far from my attention distracting device. And here we have Reddit. We have one of the most nuanced dopamine hits you can get your hands on. What has happened? 5%, 8%, 10% of their users will be on other platforms.
Yeah.
Guess what? The controversy is going to have more people go, let me see about this platform. Yeah. I don't understand it. I do understand it. More people are on Discord. Discord does better. Twitter does better. Facebook, in a sense, does better. Yeah. And 3 months, 6 months from now, maybe it will truly blow over because we need our dopamine fix at the end of the day. And I don't mean that to sound cynical along those lines.
Yeah.
But when we look at what was the Wall Street protest from about a decade ago?
What, Occupy?
Occupy. Mm-hmm. Did Occupy really change things?
That's a whole different story. Because I think it did. Because it led to certain presidencies and a bunch of other things.
Agreed. Agreed. But it didn't necessarily. Like, did it make things better? I don't want to answer that question right one way or another. Right. There's an argument for how these platforms really have become part of our societal talk, become part of the marketing we have to live. I'm going to go even further. Not to sound a little, I'm sorry if it sounds a little, like I think that there's a lot of manipulation of public opinion done by foreign countries through Twitter and Facebook and Reddit. And it's not a little bit. Um, I think Reddit at some point got a huge investment, let's call it $300 million from China. And finding pictures of Tiananmen Square on Reddit is really difficult, Frederick. I don't know how difficult it
Interesting.
is, but people keep posting it up to prevent it from being forgotten. And here we have
Yeah.
this struggle over the long term. Reddit's going nowhere.
I
Now, I want
wonder
to
though.
know,
No, go ahead.
it's going nowhere. It's going nowhere. I want to
Yeah.
know why somebody else hasn't gotten a platform out with voting and karma out there as a competitor. And there's become some distributed networks, like the way, what's the one that begins with an M that's a competitor for Twitter?
Mastodon.
Um, Mastodon.
Hmm.
And I know a lot of people who joined it, and not a lot of people go, "Oh, did you see what they said on Mastodon?"
Hmm.
And there's things like Lemmy, but these competitors are
Can I?
one.
I can answer your question about that karma.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I can answer it. It's the algorithm, right? So allowing the user base to upvote and downvote and de facto determine what's popular and what's not on the platform cedes control of the content to the people versus the algorithm that the company's in charge of, and then they can sort of guide conversations and all that, right? So I think, yeah, the way you describe Reddit, perfect, very democratic in the way it works. The best rise to the top, and the crap doesn't. Which makes sense. I get that from a content perspective, but from a fiscally responsible corporate perspective, being able to guide that conversation and control what people see and read, and especially in this political climate that we're in, if you could say, yeah, you know what, today I want more left leaning content, and today I want more right leaning content, or today we're going to push the idea that VR is the future or NFTs are the future, so we're going to upvote a bunch of that stuff, that seems like the knowing humanity, that seems like the real reason why other companies have not adopted that more democratic upvote downvote system.
Well, in shitification concept that I'm throwing in here again, I'd like
Yes.
to point out to you that it only has the semblance, the appearance of democracy. I mean, if you look at Google's own algorithm is based on who links to you and who do you link to.
Yeah.
Somebody who's got greater value has more incoming links. And you search, that's how they should be at the top. And what did they find? They found a lot of companies out there did search engine optimization in the system. So they had to alter their algorithm to prevent that. And I'm not 5%, not 50%, I'm 100% sure that Reddit's algorithm is no longer just straight upvotes. What happens when a group brigades a given subreddit and downvotes a whole bunch of content or upvotes content of their own? Suddenly, the conversation changes. So this has the appearance of democracy,
Yeah.
but it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Like with Reddit, same thing, right? It has the appearance, the upvote, downvote has the appearance of democracy, but who knows who's behind there pulling those levers and weighting things here and there and guiding the conversation. So, yeah, wow, what a mess, man. What a mess. All right, well,
Yeah.
so is Reddit
I
dead?
mean,
Jeff, is Reddit
no.
dead? Should I
Well,
not bother signing up now?
it's a hard question. I mean, it becomes this: where do you want to spend the social media time that you spend? And you're a great example here. Your first and foremost is to be socially on This Week in Photo because it's your network, it's your space where you're living. And so before you go to Twitter, before you go to Discord, before you go to Facebook, you're stopping there 8 times a day, 10 times a day. It becomes a reflex. You go and you stop there. That's what Reddit is for me. Now, my freezer broke. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know if I'm going to fix it. Where did I go? I went to an appliance subreddit with 200,000 or 300,000 people who just love buying, rebuilding, doing whatever for appliances. Man, that information there is great. Where else is it in the world?
Yeah. Yeah. Good
If it was
point.
somewhere else, I would go there. And this is where Reddit's lodestone value will remain. Is I know you're a Panasonic guy, right?
Yeah, for video, Nikon
Hold
for
on.
photography.
I will do. I will do this. You, of course, are not on a single platform. You are willing to look at and examine any platform in depth. For photography, you're using Nikon. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
So if I go to Reddit or Nikon, I've got 100,000 people who, are heavy into Nikon cameras. Whether or not they're paid shills, you'll never know. And one of the beauties of things like This Week in Photos, we know that a Nikon shill can't get on there without some level of being able to talk to you. It's not going to last. And a shill can't just walk into Reddit and go, "Oh, I just bought this camera. It's the best thing ever." That trust in the community takes a minimum of 30 days, which is beyond the legs of most marketers.
Yeah.
It's just not worth their patience. So, at an elemental level, no matter how bad Google is, we're still going to Google first. No matter how Reddit would need something catastrophic level to cause people to truly leave their platform. And every moderator is vested because it's volunteered. If it was paid, I could just quit.
Yeah. Well, let's end with this, Jeff. So zooming out. So we've been sort of zoomed into planet Reddit, right? And talking about what's the forces that are impacting in this asteroid that hit it, right? So let's zoom out a little bit and look at the solar system. There's been a lot of controversy in the platform world, let's call it, because there's been the controversy on the Twitch side of things. I'm sure you may have heard about that.
No.
Where they were requiring people that wanted to put an advertising or a bug on their video that it can only be like basically 2 pixels across or something, and then they quickly reversed that decision after the revolt. So there's Twitch, there's Reddit, and all this stuff that we've been talking about. Of course, there's Twitter and what's going on there, and then Instagram with their shift away from photography to video, Facebook and their declining reputation and their sort of reboot into Meta that kind of fizzled, we think. There's all these things happening. It feels like the industry, at least when it comes to these sort of social content generation or user generated content platforms, it seems to be in flux right now in a lot of ways. Whereas, a couple of years ago, you wouldn't have thought Twitter would be what it is today, right? You wouldn't have thought Reddit would be what it is today. Facebook was riding high. It was a different time. What's happening right now? Is it this AI stuff that's driving all this uncertainty, or is it just age? And is it time for another disruptor to come in and, wipe the slate clean again?
I don't think the slate was ever wiped clean. I don't think that the new platform ever wiped out. I mean, there are a couple exceptions in there. Like MySpace is a great example, but MySpace, I think, still exists, right? But MySpace was sold and the people who started it are gone. Facebook, that hasn't happened with. Facebook would buy the net. That's the whole thing is you get to a certain size and you go, hey, we should just buy it. Why should we rebuild it? We'll just buy out our competition and then you come back to us. At the end of the day, we've got driving factors with each of these social networks, this desire to be social. I'm going to say if all the parents are on Facebook, the kids leave Facebook for a new platform, Instagram, Snapchat, get away from where their parents are. And now that Snapchat or Instagram becomes the new normal, at some point, kids will adopt a new platform. Whether or not it gets wide acceptance, the marketers want to chase after that money. As long as they think somebody's got disposable income, that's where they're going to chase after. I don't mean for it to sound so capitalistic in nature, But that, at the end of the day, is why Amazon has crushed mom and pop stores along with Walmart. That's why, at some level, Facebook versus Twitter has become such a thing, because they work in a zero-sum economy where you only have so much time, and where are you going to spend it?
Yeah. Yeah. Jeff Greenberg, always a pleasure chatting with you, man. Thank you for shedding some light. I think it was light. Maybe it had been a colored light or something on this Reddit. It was a Reddit colored light.
I helped sharpen through the haze maybe a little bit, because I got to tell you, getting into Reddit is not super easy. And the only thing I would tell from anybody who decides to join Reddit at this point, including you, every community is its own separate place. And the first thing you do when you walk into a community, the two rules are always the same. Read the rules and lurk for at least 7 days so you learn what the content is like.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Jeff, if people want to connect
join TWiP.
with you,
join TWiP.
That or join /editors. /editors on Reddit should be, if you're not on Reddit right now, if the first place you should go is this guy's community and communicate with. Jeff, where should people go to plug in and follow you? /Redditors, of course, or /editors, /editors on Reddit. But what other locations can people go to keep up with you or continue the dialogue?
Generally speaking, I'm in one of 3 places. You can, of course, find my business's website at the letter J, Greenberg Consulting, where I consult in post-production, educate, teach around those tools. I'm on our editors as Greenie's Mac, and that's where you can find me any place where I can't get my primary handle, which is Film Geek. So I'm Film Geek on Twitter, Facebook, Film Geek in most places, or Greenie's Mac. And we just, by the way, Frederick, we haven't even pushed hard into it. We started a Discord, which we've been resisting as part of our editors. And that Discord, pretty much on day 1, hit like 300-400 people quickly. And we're going to start pushing more people as an alternative place to have conversations than just the R editors subreddit.
Yeah, that would be perfect. Right up until Discord decides to start making some crazy changes, and then here we go again, back into the ocean in the lifeboat, right?
Or Facebook buys a group like Circle or somebody else and decides to destroy a platform, even if you've not been digital sharecropping.
That's true. Yeah. I pay for my land. Wow. Yeah. Crazy, exciting times. That's Silicon Valley though, right? This is how it goes. It's never a dull moment. Either a new company coming out disrupting, or older companies coming out with new things that are disruptive, or controversy, or it's always interesting. So,
by the way,
excellent.
If you decide to go down the Reddit route, my friend, I am happy, and we can record it if you really want or not. I'm happy to shepherd you through it. I'm happy to set you up with what I think are the right extensions to use on desktop. But I think it might be fun for any one of your communities for us to go start an account from scratch, verify, and join subreddits and build a collection to kind of get a tour of what that sort of digital city is like.
I agree. So Jeff, before we end, which mobile app should I use to connect with Reddit right now?
You shouldn't. Their official app's the only one. Although I'll tell you, for the record, there's a way to sideload Apollo, and I haven't gone down the. Did you know, without jailbreaking, there's a whole sideloading community around iOS?
Oh, jeez, there's so much. Did you know there's actually an outside that you can go and not use a computer? There's too much
sunlight, and it hurts. Sunlight hurts.
Well, that's a whole different issue. Jeff Greenberg, man, thank you for doing this. I appreciate you as usual. You're always a fountain of knowledge and information on this stuff. And yeah, you were the inspiration for me to dig in and start trying to understand this better. So I was looking forward to this conversation to fill in a bunch of blanks, which I think you did with grace and skill. But now, hopefully the audience, the folks listening to this, are also up to speed on Reddit and that controversy. Whether you're into Reddit right now or just Reddit curious, now you should be up to speed on what's happening, and you can follow along with us as the story unfolds. So We'll leave it right there. Jeff Greenberg, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you.
Always a fan of you, Frederick. Thanks so much for having me.
You are welcome, sir. Take care. This is TWiP.